Well, good morning, everyone. Sorry for the delay. We had to make sure that everybody had the appropriate links, and I believe we have folks participating from all over the state, which is wonderful to see. So with that, I'd like to call this meeting to order. If I could please have the secretary call the roll.
Senator Goycochea.
Present.
Assemblywoman Hanson. Here. Mr. Benuelos. Senator Doñate.
Here.
Commissioner Jones.
Here.
And Chair Carlton.
And I am here. Thank you very much. Good morning and welcome to everyone to the final meeting of the Subcommittee on Public Lands of the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Natural Resources. We have a work session on our agenda today. Subcommittee members who are joining us virtually, be sure to keep your video on so we do have a quorum as we work through our business. Please also be sure to mute your microphone when you are not speaking to minimize any of the background noise, all of our standard notices we give folks. Lastly, for anyone on Zoom, please remember that the chat feature is only to be used for technical assistance from our broadcast and production services staff. So with that, we do have 2 public comment periods available. So I'd be happy to open it up for public comment. I'd like to go to Carson City first. I believe Senator Goycochea, you're up there. Do you have any public comment in Carson City, Senator?
Yes, I believe we do.
Okay, please welcome them to the table. State your name for the record, and remember we do have 3 minutes, so please try to keep it within that time frame.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Doug Busselman. I'm the Executive Vice President of Nevada Farm Bureau. I would like to direct my comments to item B, conjunctive management of surface and groundwater basins. We greatly appreciate the proposal for a bill draft on conjunctive management of surface and groundwater basins. For the past several years, Farm Bureau members have expressed their concern over the lack of legislative direction and absence of specific parameters in regard to how conjunctive management is going to be carried out. In the development of the proposed legislation and establishment of a working framework, we believe that it should include a full public discussion of what conjunctive management of water resources means and how combining water rights from separate sections of state law will be implemented. We recognize the importance of including the role of science in modifying management practices within such basins, but we also believe that it is essential to take into account the prior appropriation foundation of our state law and the management practices needing to not seek to override senior water rights. Senior water right owners need to have their rights properly recognized, and they should not be forced to accept financial or other compensation as mitigation measures that they do not voluntarily agree to. The interaction of water from various sources involves many different elements, and these include the time frames and the degree to which connections take place. We believe that not all areas have the same connection and interaction throughout a system, and this warrants consideration in implementing active management that has consequences to different water rights. We look forward to working with legislators and other water stakeholders in an open and collaborative process to find workable solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in Carson City, please?
This is Kyle Roerink, Executive Director of the Great Basin Water Network. I want to echo some of the comments we just heard from Mr. Busselman and expound upon the idea that we really should not be working to force what we call mitigation provisions on water users. I think that could be a poison pill that would really just torpedo or tank, I think, what will be a good and healthy conversation in the upcoming session. So just wanted to add that, and thank you all very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I believe that's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator. So with that, I do have public comment here in Las Vegas. Please introduce yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Helen Foley, and I am representing the American Wild Horse Federation. And on your work session document F, Management of Public Lands, it's draft a position statement in the final report of the subcommittee expressing support for outcome-based grazing practices on federally managed lands. That sounds good, except that this was proposed by Rebecca Stetson and her group that want to remove and eventually slaughter wild horses. We don't think that there has been a lot of consideration about this. We have cooperative agreements with the state of Nevada as well as the federal government. We just received $500,000 through Congresswoman Dina Titus and Senator Masto to allow the BLM and the Nevada Department of Wildlife to look more deeply into this, hire staff, and work on this. We're very proud of our PZP program, which deals with fertility drugs. The foals have gone down substantially. There's a lot of misinformation in the letter that Rebecca sent, and we urge you to just take this off of your agenda, not give it consideration. And if there's further discussion that needs to take place, let's do that next session of the legislature. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bevan Lister for the record, and I'm here just speaking on my own behalf today. The concept that you will be addressing in relation to conjunctive management of water resources is one that is both undefinable and indefensible. As a water right owner and water user, it's imperative that we have some level of surety or certainty of the availability of that water and those water rights. Nevada, historically, from the beginning, has had the strongest, the best water law in the nation. And then, over the last 25 to 30 years, we have step by step diluted and diminished that prior appropriation doctrine to a point where now we're, through the pleas of the Division of Water Resources that has been unwilling to follow the law as it's written, we need more tools in the toolbox. And I believe that's a false directive. The prior appropriation doctrine and the history of Nevada water law gives adequate tools, powerful tools for the management of water. Conjunctive management in managing surface water and groundwater together is kind of the antithesis of the state law that it's written. We have a chapter for surface water and a chapter for groundwater. That those two resources are connected, certainly. But on a basin by basin approach, any engineer can look at the perennial yield for the total system and manage as directed to that perennial yield. I guess my request or my plea to you, if you're going to make a change to Nevada water law, then let's return it to what it should be. Why don't we repeal every change that's been made in the last 20 years? Take conjunctive management and the mention of it completely out of the books because it's already implied in the law that's there, in the chapters that are there. So look forward to working with you through this session. Sound water law is imperative for us. And I hope that you will look at the long-term ramifications of the things that you're proposing to change. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Chair Carlton and members of the committee. My name is Jane Amon, and I'm the External Affairs Director for the Nature Conservancy in Nevada. TNC supports recommendations 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, and 8 in the work session document. Regarding 1 and 2, there is a crisis on the Colorado River. We need to identify and implement a variety of tools to benefit our rivers, increase flexibility for water users, and bolster the Colorado River's basin's resilience in the face of drought and climate change. Regarding recommendation 4, conjunctively managed systems not only protect senior water rights, but also protect the health of the springs and surface water systems that people, plants, fish, and wildlife depend on. We support clarification of the use of science for management decisions. Without scientific evidence, decisions could be determined without evidentiary showing, leaving assessments open-ended and arbitrary. Additionally, we recommend convening some stakeholder meetings to discuss and develop consensus language for potential legislation on conjunctive management. We support recommendation 5. A Nevada Natural Resources Corps could help boost and diversify the conservation workforce in Nevada, and it will support resiliency for our public lands and Nevada's outdoor recreation economy. We support recommendation 7 for NDOW to manage non-pest insects, and we suggest broadening the scope of management to include all non-pest invertebrate animals. Maintaining invertebrate biodiversity is critical for healthy ecosystems, and we support the management of invertebrates in the State Wildlife Management Plan. Regarding recommendation 8, the Nature Conservancy has partnered with ranchers in northeastern Nevada to design an outcome-based grazing permit for the Wine Cup Gamble Ranch and related allotments. TNC believes that in many cases, flexible grazing permits that are based on sound ecological principles and simple but effective adaptive management approaches can lead to better outcomes for conservation and the livestock industry than the status quo. We are happy to share more information about this project that we are working on with Wine Cup Gamble Ranch. We have also provided additional rationale in our written comment, which we submitted this morning, and thank you so much for considering our comments and for the service that you all do to this committee.
Okay, thank you. I was just looking for the comments, so I'll try to find them, all right, just to make sure that I understand thoroughly. With that, is there any other public comment here in Las Vegas? Seeing none. Broadcast services, do we have anyone to make public comment on the line?
Participate in public comment, please press raise hand in your Zoom window or *9 on your phone to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits 010, you may begin.
Good morning. This is Jake Tibbetts. I'm the Natural Resource Manager for Eureka County. Make sure you can hear me okay.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate the time this morning. First, I'll note that Eureka County commissioners, they provided a packet of recommendations and requests, and those are in your backup and also online, and the board does wish for the committee to consider those items. Second, there's many items on the work session that we are not opposed to, but I'm not providing specific comment on today, and we just look forward to working with folks on these issues as they move forward through the upcoming session. Lastly, specifically regarding the item on conjunctive management and the role of science in managing water resources, Eureka County does share the viewpoint that you've heard from Farm Bureau and the Great Basin Water Network, and we won't belabor those points. We are a bit concerned with the path the BDR could take, and our concern is rooted in previous legislative session when there was work to place conjunctive management in the statute. There was an effort by some to include some language that would allow conjunctive management to be used to approve water rights applications that would conflict with existing rights. And some of these terms were the terms such as replacement water and augmentation plans. And we are concerned about that process moving forward and opening the door for that to mitigation to be forced on people. Finally, conjunctive management and the use of science in managing water. These issues are currently in front of our state Supreme Court. And while we do support this BDR moving forward, we do believe it may be wise to get clarity from the Supreme Court on these issues before the legislature moves forward with language. That way the bill language can be more focused and surgical after getting that direction from the Supreme Court. And again, I want to thank you for the opportunity today and look forward to listening in on your work session.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else on the line?
Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no more callers.
Thank you very much. Then I believe we can go ahead and proceed, keeping in mind that there will be another public comment section at the end of the meeting. So with that, we'll go to agenda item number 3, which is approval of the minutes. Currently, we have the minutes from May 23rd. Members, are there any questions, comments, or corrections on the May 23rd minutes?
Madam Chair, I'll abstain. I wasn't present.
That's fine. Any other committee members at this time? Not seeing any questions or comments on the minutes, I would go ahead and take a motion to approve the minutes from Senator Dunyate, a second from Assemblywoman Hanson. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye. Is there any opposition? Seeing no opposition, passes unanimously of the members present. That takes us to our main point of business today, which is the work session document. So let me go ahead and pull that document up here. Make sure we're working off the right items. So with that, we have a list of proposed recommendations relating to water conservation, conjunctive management of surface and groundwater basins, natural resource workforce development, the State Board on Geographic Names, endangered species, management of public lands, and also the management of the running of the subcommittee on public lands. So Mr. Stinisbeck is going to go ahead and walk us through the document. If we go too quick or someone needs us to slow down, please speak up. With all of us being in different spots across the state, we want to make sure that everyone's on the same page and everyone has their questions or concerns addressed as we move through the work session document. So with that, Mr. Stinisbeck, would you please proceed?
Thank you, Chair. For the record, Jan Stinisbeck with the Research Division of the LCB. As nonpartisan central staff, I can neither advocate nor oppose any measure that you will consider today. You should have the work session document in front of you. It's online. The chair and staff of the Subcommittee on Public Lands have prepared the work session document to assist the subcommittee in determining which legislative measures it will request for the 2023 session of the Nevada Legislature, as well as other actions the subcommittee may endorse. Subcommittee staff has compiled, organized the proposals so that subcommittee members can review them and decide whether they want to accept, reject, modify, or take no action on the recommendations. The work session document groups the proposals by topic, and they are not in preferential order. This for the subcommittee's consideration. The Joint Interim Standing Committee on Natural Resources is limited to 14 legislative measures, at least 4 of which must relate to matters relating to public lands, based on the recommendations of the subcommittee. Further, the subcommittee may vote to send as many statements or letters of recommendation or support as it chooses and include statements in its final report. With that, the first recommendation on the work session document under A1, under water conservation, is to request the drafting of a bill to address water conservation and enhancement of return flow in Southern Nevada, including, without limitation, the use of Colorado River water in septic systems and modifications to a non-functional turf program. This was recommended based on testimony during the May 23rd, 2022 meeting in Boulder City. With that, thank you, Chair Carlton.
Thank you very much. So committee members, we'll open it up for discussion on the item. Are there any questions? This was the Boulder City meeting. So with that, questions or conversation on this particular item before we move forward?
Madam Chair, Senator Goycochea, more of a comment than a question on, and the only thing that really concerns me, and again, we passed a bill last session on non-functional turf and removing them, but there does come a point when we have to reach a balance between asphalt and cement and actual, is that turf non-functional or is it serving a purpose, i.e. through cooling, transevaporation, and we're really focusing on, I know down there in southern Nevada, even limiting the size of swimming pools. That's going to have an impact on the environment in general, and so that's just a comment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And I appreciate that, Senator Goycochea, and my husband and I have had many comments about our little small patch of front yard. We have done everything to conserve, but we have that one little piece left. And when do we convert that? I still consider it functional because we live on it and the dogs live on it. But eventually it will probably have to go. I think Southern Nevada has an awakening that needs to happen when it comes to turf. We do live in a desert. So as we move forward, those conversations will be evolving, especially here in Southern Nevada. So are there any other questions or comments on this item? Not seeing any, I would go ahead and accept a motion for item number A1. I have a motion from Senator Doñate and a second from Commissioner Jones. Questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of the members present. Mr. Stinisbeck, can we go ahead and move on to the next item, please?
Thank you, Chair. For record, Jan Stinisbeck. Under item A2 is the request to draft a resolution addressing the management of the Colorado River, wherein the state sets forth the principles on water conservation relating to the Colorado River and shares various conservation efforts it has taken to conserve water in the Colorado River. This was based on testimony during the May 23rd meeting, again in Boulder City. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Committee members, are there any questions or comments on item A2? Along the same line of the conservation discussion we just had.
Madam Chair.
Not seeing any.
Madam Chair, Senator Goycochea.
Yes, Senator Goycochea.
Again, just a comment, and I'm looking at this. Is this going to come in the form of a resolution supporting or, a draft position more or less? Because clearly the Colorado River is under the Colorado River Commission, and therefore, we're saying, we're going to set forth principles for water conservation. Do we have that authority?
Senator Goycochea, it's my impression that as a legislature, when we send a resolution, it's sending a message of how we feel about a particular issue. I don't think it has it has no weight or authority behind it. It just shares our viewpoints with those that wish to read the resolution or take the resolution into consideration. So it's not like we're proposing a bill draft to actually change the NRS. This is more of a position statement as far as how we're looking at the Colorado River. Yes.
Okay, I concur with that, and I would move for approval.
Thank you very much, Senator Goycochea. I appreciate that. Are there any other questions or comment? I'll go ahead. I have a motion. I'll go ahead and take a second. A second from Senator Doñate. Now we'll go ahead and continue with comments. Are there any other comments on item A2? Not seeing any other comments, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Is there anyone in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of the members that are present. Mr. Stinisbeck, item number A3.
Item A3 is to draft a position statement in the final report of subcommittee expressing opposition to proposed water development projects in southern Utah that would negatively impact groundwater and surface water flows in Nevada and supporting aggressive conservation alternatives. This was based on recommendations from the Great Basin Water Network during the May 23rd, 2022 meeting in Boulder City. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stinisbeck. In history, committee members, I'll just share with you that I've always been a little apprehensive of one state sending resolutions or other things to other states saying, hey, we don't like what you're up to, but the Colorado River is in a crisis right now. This is not a resolution. This is a position statement, which I believe a lot of folks understand where we're coming from. So it will just carry the weight as a statement from this committee about concerns of future development on the river without conservation measures being taken at this time. So that's kind of where we're coming from. Just wanted to put that out there on the record because I figured it was probably going to come up. So with that, are there any questions or comments from committee members on this position statement? Not seeing any.
Madam Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Madam Chair, it's Assemblywoman Hanson. I just had a question.
If you could get a little closer to the microphone or speak up, I'm having a hard time hearing you, Assemblywoman. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I hope this is better. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. I concur. And I just had a question. I'm not as familiar, with position statements versus other ways of drafting it. And just a question, a lot of times we maybe look for cooperative agreements or cooperative, I don't know if there's such a thing as a cooperative statement. Is there any chance to maybe look at it in that light instead of an opposition statement per the comments that you made?
And I apologize, Assemblywoman. I'm not quite sure what the question is. So you'd like to change it, if I understood you correctly, you'd like to change it from expressing opposition to the proposed development projects to trying to work cooperatively on the proposed projects?
Well, I'm not necessarily, and can you hear me okay, Chair?
Yes, I've got you.
Thank you. I'm not necessarily asking us to change anything, just some clarification for me to understand in light of your comments, which I agreed with, that we have hesitancy in telling other states, how to do things, or we're opposing per se. In the spirit of cooperation, is there another way instead of a opposition statement? Is there some other vernacular that we've used in the past? And I agree with you on the Colorado River, things are in crisis. So this is more just informational for me. I'm not looking to take this off the rails at all.
Madam Chair, if I may, Senator Goycochea just commented.
Senator Goycochea, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I agree with where the Assemblywoman is headed. We're going to express our opposition, but maybe also a follow-up to that we look forward to working with you to, on the impacts to the Colorado. And
Okay.
maybe soften the opposition. Again, we're one state to another state.
Sure, I absolutely understand where you're coming from. Maybe, I think what might make everyone a little more comfortable is we can change the word opposition to concerns and look forward to working with them on addressing those concerns in the future. I believe we have a long list of data points that could be used to substantiate the concerns, and I think the letter will be, or the position statement will probably be interpreted as opposition, but we could use the word concerns if that makes folks a little more comfortable that we're expressing our concern to those, to that development and the adverse effects that it could have on Southern Nevada. So if that would make everyone more comfortable, I would be happy to just ask staff to change the word opposition to concern. That work for everybody?
Fine by me. That's just, we're going to have to work with them. They happen to be upstream. Thank you.
Right. Well,
Thank you,
it
Madam
is a
Chair.
continuum.
That helps.
Okay, thank you, Assemblywoman. So with that, that's the proposed amendment to the statement that is in the working doc, that our work session document, that on item A3, the word opposition be changed to the word concerns. So I would take a motion to process item A3. I'll take a motion from Assemblywoman Hanson and a second from Commissioner Jones. Any questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Thank you all very much. Is there anyone in opposition? Hearing no one in opposition, passes unanimously of all the members present. Mr. Stinisbeck, we can go ahead and move on to item B4.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, Jan Stinisbeck. Item B4 is to request the drafting of a bill to clarify the process and authority for the conjunctive management of surface and groundwater basins, including, without limitation, the public notification process, appeals processes, and the role of science in modifying management practices within such basins. This was based on testimony made during the May 23rd meeting in Boulder City. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Stinisbeck. This is going to be a very interesting bill draft, I can tell. We did hear a lot of comments about, we thought we had it right the first time in Boulder City, but apparently there's still some things that folks feel leave to be interpreted within the NRS, even though we thought we said it pretty clearly. So I guess if we didn't say it clearly enough the first time, we're going to have to make it even clearer the second time around. This is one of those issues that I am grateful I will not be in the legislature next session. So with that, are there any questions or comments on item number B4, knowing that this bill will be thoroughly vetted? I'm not hearing any questions or comments. So with that, I would go ahead and be happy to take a motion on item B4. I'll accept a motion from Senator Donyate, a second from Commissioner Jones. Any questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Those opposed? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of the members present. Mr. Stinisbeck, item number C5, please.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, Jan Stinisbeck. Item C5 is to request the drafting of a bill to establish the Nevada Natural Resources Corps. This program would seek to help attract professionals to Nevada to work for certain state agencies. The program would provide a hiring advantage to a person who served with AmeriCorps in the state. And lastly, this measure would seek to promote outreach efforts by applicable state agencies to AmeriCorps volunteers so that such persons are aware of natural resources, jobs, opportunities in the state. This recommendation was made by Mr. Stanton, the Executive Director of the Walker Basin Conservancy, during his presentation in May 23rd in Boulder City. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stinisbeck. So with that, I find this a very interesting recommendation. It's all about growing our own. I really like the idea behind this. So with that, committee members, any other thoughts on this particular item? Not seeing anyone. So with that, I would be happy to take a motion on item number C5 from Senator Donyate, a second from Commissioner Jones, any questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Raising your hand. Thank you. Is there anyone in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of the members present. Moving on to item number D6. Is that correct? Yes. Mr. Stinisbeck.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, Jan Stinisbeck with the Research Division of the LCB. D6 requests the drafting of the bill to amend applicable NRS to authorize members of the Nevada State Board on Geographic Names to receive reimbursement for incidental expenses and to be entitled to receive the per diem allowance and travel expenses provided for state officers and employees generally. This idea arose from the testimony during the June 27th meeting of the subcommittee in Nixon, Nevada. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stinisbeck. I've always been a firm believer that if we ask people to serve, it should not come out of their own pockets at least. We should address it. And the update that we got from this board is there is a lot of work in front of them over the next couple of years to deal with some of the issues. So I believe we need to be reasonable and compensate them for the work that they do. Public service is one thing, but we shouldn't have anyone not serving because they can't financially afford to. We want people to serve. And I just think it's reasonable to deal with that. So are there any other questions or comments on item number D6? Not seeing any, I would be happy to accept a motion then from Senator Doñate, a second from Commissioner Jones. Any questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Thank you all very much. Is there anyone in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of all the members that are present. Moving on to item number E7.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, Jan Stinisbeck with the Research Division of the LCB. E7 is to request the drafting of a bill to authorize the Nevada Department of Wildlife to manage non-pest insects, including without limitation endangered butterflies. This recommendation was based on testimony from a presentation from a Center for Biological Diversity during the subcommittee's June 27 meeting in Nixon, Nevada. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So with that, committee members, are there any questions or comments on item number E7?
Madam Chair.
Senator Gokachia.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And I just can't support this particular bill draft. I'm concerned about, non-pest insects, and especially in the event they are endangered. I think there is an inherent conflict between NDOW managing, game species on one side and then having endangered species on the other. I'm just concerned about that.
I understand, Senator Gokachia. I asked some of those same questions. It's my understanding, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, that currently right now they're not monitored by anyone at all. They're kind of out there on their own. So we're just trying to find a home for them because we know it can be an issue as we move forward in the state. Is that correct? If I could ask staff.
That is the testimony we received during the meeting.
Yeah. So currently they're not done by anyone. So trying to figure out where their best home might be moving forward. So with that, Assemblywoman Hanson, I believe I saw your hand go up.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I too have some reservations. As I recall, at the Public Lands meeting in Nixon, I had asked the question if NDOW had requested this, and as I recall, they didn't. At least they weren't involved in the presentation that we heard from biodiversity at that meeting. And while I can understand if there's non-pests that don't reside in any home per se. Maybe that's something we need to look into a little bit more, but I share Senator Gogachia's concerns putting this in NDOW. So for those reasons, at this point, I would have to be a no. Thank you for the time.
I understand, and we know full well that when we recommend a bill draft to the full Committee of Natural Resources, and then the full Committee of Natural Resources will draft that bill and take it before hearing, and that's when that committee will get a lot more information and decide, is this really the right place for it to be, or is there another alternative? I think it's important that we have the conversation, and the bill draft will start that conversation. So support or opposition to a bill draft moving forward, I just feel it's more about putting this on the table in front of Natural Resources in the next legislative session and have them actually address the issue and get the information needed for the committee members in the full legislature to make a decision on it. So even though I am a little uncomfortable with it, I'd like to have that conversation proceed. So I'll be supporting it strictly for that reason, so that that conversation can move forward. Any other questions or comments from the committee members at this time? So with that, I'll go ahead and accept a motion on item number C7, and we'll just see where we land. So with that, I'll accept a motion from Senator Donyate, a second from Commissioner Jones. Comments on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Thank you. And those in opposition?
No.
Senator Gokachia is in opposition, and Assemblywoman Hansen is in opposition. Anyone else? Then the motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll move forward from here. Item, Mr. Sinisbeck, I believe that takes us to item number F8, Management of Public Lands.
Thank you, Chair. For record, Jan Stinsbeck. Item F8 is to draft a position statement in a final report of the subcommittee expressing support for outcome-based grazing practices on federally managed lands. This recommendation was based on testimony during the April 15th meeting in Ely, Nevada. Thank you, Chair.
And thank you very much, Mr. Stinisbeck. And I do have a question because unfortunately I was unable to attend in Ely. And we did have some comments, and I believe there's some concerns about this position statement possibly having some impact on wild horses on the range. And it's my understanding that this really has nothing to do with that was not part of the conversation. This was strictly about those particular ranches that were being addressed, but unfortunately, I was not chairing that meeting that day. Chair Watts was chairing the meeting. So if anyone else has any questions or concerns, but I just wanted to put on the record that this statement is not directed at wild horses. We have kept wild horses out of the conversation of public lands for this interim. So nothing we have done addresses wild horses. So are there any other questions or comments on this item?
Madam Chair, Senator Goycochea, for the record, just a comment,
Yes.
and clearly you're right on point with this. This is about outcome-based grazing and does not take the horses, either increase or reduction of wild horse herds into this whatsoever. It's not a wild horse management program. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Coming from the guy with the ranch up north, I appreciate that very much. Are there any other comments from the committee at this time? I believe with those statements, we've made the intent of the subcommittee crystal clear. So I would go ahead and accept a motion on item number F8. Take a motion from Senator Donyate and a second from Assemblywoman Hansen. Any questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
And is there anyone in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of all of our members that are present. I believe this takes us to item G, our last subcategory, with a couple of different components. So with that, Mr. Stinisbeck, item G, the Subcommittee on Public Lands issues.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, Jan Stinisbeck with the Research Division of the LCB. Item G9 is to send a letter to the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections, through which the subcommittee will propose certain statutory changes. Specifically, this letter will propose to amend subsection 6 of NRS 218E.510 so that the chair of the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Natural Resources, in consultation with the chair of the Subcommittee on Public Lands, will appoint alternate members of the subcommittee. This action will occur during the first regular meeting of the committee. And secondly, amend paragraphs A and B of subsection 1 of NRS 218E.510 to ensure that one member of the Senate and one member of the Assembly are members of the joint parties, of the majority parties of the Senate and Assembly, respectively, and one member of the Senate and one member of the Assembly are members of the minority parties of the Senate and Assembly, respectively. This was recommended by Chair Carlton. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stinisbeck. I see this as the typical cleanup language when the interim change, when the bill draft to change the committees around and more of the interim structure that we're doing. I lost the battle on having public lands be its own committee, so that's done and over with moving forward. Even though if I could get away with a bill draft to do that right now, I probably would, but I won't. So with that, this will address some of the technical issues and cleanup language that we need to make sure that the Natural Resources Committee and the Subcommittee on Public Lands can get its work done through the next legislative interim. So are there any questions or comments on item number G? Assemblywoman Hanson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and really just a comment. I wanted to thank you in particular for bringing this forward on public lands. I'm the recipient of your bipartisanship in trying to make sure things stay balanced, and you're codifying it with the recommendation of codifying it. So I do certainly appreciate that we have representation in both the Assembly and the Senate on this committee, and just an indulgence that you will be missed, and have appreciated how you have been so open to all parts of the state and hearing and being reasonable. And I would have loved to have co-sponsored that Public Lands Committee bill. So
Thank you, Assemblywoman Hanson. If they saw the two of us coming together, they'd be a little bit scared, I believe. So with that, are there any other questions or comments on item number G, the cleanup language that we need, that I believe should be proposed to move forward? Seeing no questions or comments, I would go ahead and happy to take a motion. I'll take the motion from Senator Doñate, a second from Assemblywoman Hanson. Any questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand. Thank you all very, very much. Is there anyone in opposition? Hearing none, no opposition, passes unanimously of the members present. Thank you all, committee, very much for being prepared and doing your homework to make this work session flow very smoothly. As we get ready for the last public comment section, I would just like to say it's been a pleasure to chair this. I thank the chair for allowing me to chair Public Lands for the last time. Public Lands was chaired by Senator Dean Rhodes since its creation, and he was the single chair for over 2 decades, I believe, if I remember right. And I was the first woman and the first Democrat and the first Southerner to ever chair Public Lands. And it was my honor to do it back in the day. I learned a lot. We're a big state, and we all need to understand what our neighbors face every single day. And Public Lands is the committee, with the state being controlled mostly by the federal government. It's a very important committee that we stay in tune with everyone on Public Lands. So it's been my pleasure, and thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to do this interim. So with that, I believe we can go ahead and open it up for our last round of public comment. Senator Argokachia, do you have anyone in Carson City for public comment?
I don't see anyone rushing forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, very much. We do have someone here in Southern Nevada on public comment. BPS, if you would let us know after we finish here if we have anyone on public comment, just giving you the clue that we're coming to you next. So please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bevan Lister for the record, representing myself, and I'll speak specifically to work item 4E7. So not knowing what kind of language will come out in a situation like this, I think it's important to understand, even though there might be the concept out there that nobody is looking at or monitoring our non-pest insects, especially endangered butterflies, anything that receives a protected status through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is monitored and managed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and NDOW has lost its position and authority once that species has been listed. So depending on how this is worded, you could end up in a conflict with federal law in who has management authority or jurisdiction. Along the same lines, and this is certainly my personal opinion, Nevada Department of Wildlife is not now and has not been for many decades a wildlife management agency. They are simply an environmental advocacy organization. And I think it's especially telling that they're being supported in this move by another environmental advocacy organization. If, and I'm going to put a big if on it, if the Nevada Department of Wildlife actually managed wildlife, then the situation with our wildlife would be very different. And just as a side note, if it is the purpose and wish of the legislature to destroy all non-pest insects, including endangered butterflies, then by all means, assign them to the Department of Wildlife. They have very successfully destroyed mule deer herds, sage grouse populations. Do you want me to go on and on? Thank you very much.
Is there any other public comment here in Las Vegas? Not seeing anything else here. BPS, do we have anyone on the line?
To participate in public comment, please press star 9 on your phone to take your place in the queue. Chair, the public line is open and working, but nobody wishes to participate at this time.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Committee, thank you for your hard work. The meeting of natural resources, we need a 30-minute turnaround. It is 10:02, so I ran 2 minutes behind. Darn it, was planning on being done at 10 o'clock. We will gear up natural resources with Chairman Watts at hopefully about 10:35. So everyone take a short break, and we'll see you all at about 10:35. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for a good job.